After I was reborn as a goblin, I actually turned down a beautiful human girl. Instead, I chose a female goblin despised by her own kind. All the other goblins mocked me, calling me an idiot. But only I knew the truth. The goblin before me was the only female of her species in the entire world. Mating with her would allow me to become the legendary goblin god. It turns out this was a world created by gods, filled with powerful monsters. Even humans had carved out a place for themselves on this continent, yet I had become one of the weakest and filthiest creatures, a goblin. And while I had the system that all reincarnators are supposed to get, it just wouldn't activate. In my memories, goblins were the lowest ranked monsters on the continent. However, they had the ability to grow stronger by constantly consuming and by mating with females. The problem was, the goblin race had no females of its own. To reproduce, they had to constantly capture females from other species. As someone who was once human, I naturally couldn't bring myself to commit such an inhuman act. So, when my clansmen rushed at that human girl, I stepped forward once again to save her. Of course, my repeated life-risking actions made the girl develop feelings for me. She could tell I didn't want to be with the other goblins. So she told me that the Human Knight's order was always fair in its judgments. When they came to rescue her, she would convince them to take me to a human village to live. I was stunned when I heard that. After all, I was still far too weak. If I could just hold out until the Knight's order arrived, I could gain the protection of humans and survive. Then, I could finally focus on figuring out how to activate my system. But suddenly, a clamor of footsteps came from outside the cave. I reacted quickly, telling the girl to hide. Soon enough, a goblin charged towards us, screaming, "Human! Mate with me, quick. If I get stronger, they won't kill me." Without a second thought, I swung my blade and took off his head. Then, I turned to the girl and said, "It looks like humans have come to rescue you." Hearing this, the girl excitedly rushed out of the cave. As soon as we were outside, we saw a figure in full armor, slaughtering everything in sight. The scene made me freeze right where I stood, because it was clear from my system panel that this person was the strongest human I had ever encountered. His stats had reached an absurd level. The girl hurried forward to greet him. "Commander, you're finally here." Who would have thought that a cold longsword would be his greeting? Luckily, I reacted fast enough to tackle her out of the way and save her. Just as I was wondering why this man would attack the girl, Lothal spoke, his gaze icy. What a disgrace. To think a goblin actually dodged my attack. The girl was completely bewildered and asked the commander if he had mistaken her for a goblin. When she heard Lothal say that tainted humans don't deserve to live, the girl quickly cried out, insisting that she hadn't been defiled. Then, she pointed to me behind her. "This goblin, he's been risking his life to protect me." Instead of believing her, Lothal raised his weapon again and shouted, "Do you take me for an idiot? If you're going to lie, at least make it believable." Seeing this, I yanked the girl back and told her to run for the exit on the right. With that, I grabbed a wooden club and charged forward without hesitation. But what I never, ever expected was, a golden shield suddenly appeared, protecting me. And with it came a voice. "Wait, Lothal, there's something strange about this goblin." Soon, a woman in a long robe appeared in my line of sight. The girl I had just saved crawled towards her, shouting, "Saintess, please, I beg you, save me." After handing the girl over to Lothal, the Saintess turned her gaze to me. She asked if I could understand human speech. I knew perfectly well that the person before me was the temple's representative, Avelia. If I wanted to get out of here alive, I had to seize this chance. So, I yelled at her, "You must be the Saintess they were talking about. I'm not actually a monster from this world. I only became like this because of an accident. I can go back and explain everything to you all." Hearing this, Ephraia showed a relieved smile. She said that such an intelligent goblin must be a gift from the Holy Mother. Then, with a smile still on her face, she asked the girl if this goblin had truly never harmed her. After getting an affirmative answer, Ephraia decided to take me back with them before making a final decision. Hearing this, I was overjoyed and promised that I would definitely repay her kindness. However, Ephraia suddenly flashed a wicked grin. With a sickening squelch, Lodel, who was right beside her, thrust his sword straight into the girl's stomach. Hearing the sound, I instinctively looked behind me. I saw the girl go silent on the spot. But before I could even recover from the horror, Ephraim's mocking voice rang out, "Once we get back, you'd better repay me properly." 1 week later, in a certain room, Ephraim was toying with a potion in her hand, while on a nearby wall. I had already been tortured by her various methods until I was black and blue. Hearing that I still had the strength to curse her as a damned bitch, Ephraim couldn't help but sneer, "You goblins really are a tenacious bunch. No wonder the sanctum can't seem to completely wipe you out." With that, she stood up and added, "How about we test the effects of poison on a goblin this time?" Hearing her words, I roared in fury. "You didn't just lie to me, you lied to everyone. You even kill your own comrades without a second thought. Is this what you humans call justice?" The next second, a wooden stick was violently shoved into my mouth. After doing this, Ephraim said viciously, "A weak piece of trash like you dares to question us humans? Lilia was bewitched by you into speaking on your behalf. That's tantamount to betraying the Holy Order and humanity. Her death was her final act of loyalty. As for you goblins, you are nothing but vermin on this god-created continent. So be grateful and use your disgusting body to contribute to the experiments of humanity in the Holy Order. With a wave of Ephraya's hand, a storm of fire instantly filled the surroundings, and a flaming magic circle appeared right beneath my body. Feeling the life force draining rapidly from my body, I knew my life was about to end. I thought back to the moment I was brought to the human village, how she had used every method imaginable to torture me for her own amusement. An endless well of resentment and rage surged through my heart. If I just had one more chance, I would never choose to trust humans again. Chewing their bones to bits is what a goblin is supposed to do. But when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in some kind of special space. At the same time, a system panel popped up, indicating that the Goblin Life Simulation system had been activated. It asked if I wanted to start a new life. Seeing this, I finally realized. This system could only be activated after death. But even if I could start over, I would still be a goblin, the lowest ranking monster on the continent. Thinking this, I asked the system, what does choosing to restart mean? Upon learning that I could return to 1 week ago with my memories intact, I couldn't hold back my excitement. You have to understand, this was a chance for revenge. So, Lodel and Ephraya, I will return the pain you inflicted on me 1,000 times over. Without a moment's hesitation, I pressed the confirm button. The next second, I was transported back to the goblin nest. Just then, the system sent another notification, stating that although the host has been reborn, the crisis is not yet over. If I am killed by the human Night Order, the system will not be able to resurrect me again. So, I asked the system if it had any other abilities. Another panel popped up before my eyes, explaining that I could use this system to simulate the host's entire life. Different choices would lead to different outcomes, but each simulation required a 24-hour interval. After a simulation ends, I would receive points to exchange for items. Seeing this, a smile crept onto my face. It seems I now have the ability to foresee the future. With a grand wave of my hand, I activated the life simulation system. From the system panel, I learned that this scenario was titled, Escape from the Goblin Cave. It also gave me 3 options. The first was to warn my fellow goblins. That way, we could team up against Lordle and the others. The second was to abandon the other goblins and run. The third was to hide in the nest and pray I wouldn't be found. But it was obvious that with Lordle's strength, even if all the goblins in the entire nest joined forces, they would be no match for him alone. To test my theory, I chose the first option and ran the simulation. I thought I might even be able to exchange points for a weapon to boost my combat power. The result was just as I had guessed. In less than 2.5 minutes, all the goblins were slaughtered by Lordle and his group. Fortunately, the point reward from the simulation was successfully credited to my account. So I opened the shop to pick out a weapon, only to find that they cost at least several hundred or even 1,000 points. The only thing I could afford was this most common elven swift blade. But even so, this weapon was 100 times stronger than what the goblins used. But what made me curious was that since I had returned to this timeline, Kalia should have been resurrected too. The system gave me an explanation for this. Apparently, my rebirth caused some minor details to change, and this time, Kalia wasn't captured by the goblins. She was currently living happily in the village. Understanding the whole story, I smiled with relief. After all, this meant I no longer had anything to worry about. Meanwhile, outside a certain cave, 2 knights from the Knightly Order were complaining about why no goblins had come out to be killed yet. Little did they know, as they chatted idly, my figure had already crept to the cave entrance. When I heard one of them remind his companion that, aside from the goblins, they also had to follow Lordle's orders and eliminate any human girls who escaped during the chaos, I couldn't help but curse inwardly, damn you, Holy Order humans. To maintain their rule, they won't even spare their own kind. Then, I had a sudden idea. I immediately pinched my nose and prepared to imitate a girl's voice. A moment later, a voice echoed from within the cave. I'm a girl from Bright Town. Somebody, please save me. Hearing this, one of the men immediately hid his weapon and walked towards the cave. Just as he leaned in and said, don't be afraid. We from the Knightly Order will get you home safely, he was met with my long-awaited ambush. While the other knight was still stunned, I charged straight at him, ignoring his armor. With a whoosh, before he could react, a deep gash was cut across his body. Although he didn't understand why a goblin would have such a fine weapon, he immediately knelt and begged for his life, even taking out a photo of his wife and daughter to win my sympathy. Seeing that the goblin seemed distracted, the man gave a wicked smile, pulled out a dagger, and thought to himself, die. You stupid beast. But in the next second, the man's head was instantly chopped off. Before I could even catch my breath, I heard the sound of Lordle fighting goblins in the distance. I knew it wasn't the right time to face him, so I took off the man's clothes and headed in the opposite direction. Soon, Avelia and Lordle discovered the 2 bodies. After some analysis, Avelia concluded that the 2 had died at the hands of a goblin. And since it was able to kill 2 humans, it was very likely a mutant goblin. Hearing this, Lordle kicked one of the bodies and cursed, "Useless fools, can't even handle a mutant goblin." However, Avelia licked her lips and said, "A mutant goblin, you say? I bet it would be a lot of fun. If I can catch it, I'll have to play with it to my heart's content." On the other side, after a long escape, I finally let out a sigh of relief. The thought of how much they despised goblins made me decide to retaliate in the goblin way. As everyone knows, the nature of goblins is to reproduce and devour, increasing their own strength while breeding a stronger next generation to expand their forces. So, in this life, I will make it a luxury for any man to simply be alive. Every woman wailed in agony at my feet, but suddenly, a sound rustled from the nearby bushes. Reacting instantly, I decided to strike first. Whether it was Liddell's pursuers or some other creature, only by taking the initiative could I avoid getting hurt. But as I rushed forward, I froze in my tracks, because the startled figure that had fallen to the ground was, shockingly, a female goblin. Seeing me staring at her, the female goblin explained tremblingly, "Please, don't hurt me, I just came to get some water." I, on the other hand, was lost in thought. For one, female goblins had never been known to exist in goblin society. What's more, this goblin not only had female features but could even speak in complete sentences. Just then, the system displayed her status panel. I saw that her class was listed as Divine Envoy. This meant that if a male goblin and a female goblin were to unite, they could become the legendary Goblin God. I was completely stunned once again. Everything happening before me felt surreal. I then moved closer to her. Terrified, she immediately cried out, "I was really sent by the chieftain to get water. If I don't get any, the chieftain and the others will beat me to death." Hearing this, I patted her on the shoulder and told her not to be afraid. I said I didn't mean to scare her. To my surprise, the female goblin also looked shocked. She never imagined that the goblin in front of her could actually speak. After all, 99% of the goblins in her tribe couldn't speak clearly. She then tugged on my clothes and said her name was Gobugetsu. The goblins in her tribe either hit or cursed at her. This was the first time she had ever felt cared for. Hearing the word, tribe, my face lit up with excitement, and I immediately asked if she could take me back with her. After all, I didn't even have a place to stay, let alone recruit underlings to carry out my plan for revenge. Gobugetsu blushed and agreed. Soon, under her guidance, I arrived at the tribe's location. But because I was wearing human clothes, it instantly put all the goblins on high alert. When they heard me say I wanted to join their tribe and asked to see their leader, the goblins spoke in their broken accents. "Strange outsider wants to see the boss? Let's capture him first and then take him there." Just as Gobugetsu stepped forward to explain that I wasn't a bad person, a voice suddenly boomed. "What are you all gathered here making a racket for?" The one who spoke was none other than the chieftain here, a goblin priest. I learned from the system panel that not only had this guy reached level 25, but he was also a superior goblin species, a hobgoblin. When the chieftain asked who brought this outsider, Gobugetsu quickly explained that I had nowhere else to go, which is why she brought me to the tribe. The next second, the chieftain ordered, "Kill this outsider goblin and eat his flesh." Seeing the goblins roaring as they charged at me, I decisively drew my weapon and shouted, "I can make weapons, just let me join you, and you can all become stronger." Hearing this, the chieftain waved his hand, signaling them to stop their attack. He then came up to me, lifted my chin, and said, "You indeed don't have the scent of a liar on you. Speak, what kind of weapons can you make?" I knew this was my chance. I explained that as long as they could find raw materials like iron ore, I could craft simple iron tools, and if there was enough time, I could even create weapons far more powerful than this one. When they heard me say that once they had powerful weapons, the tribe could defeat monsters or humans, the goblins present all started shouting, "With iron tools, we won't be afraid of humans. Let's go to the northern tribe and capture elves to breed with." The chieftain was also well aware of the importance of weapons. He pointed at Gobugetsu beside me and said, "I'll give you 3 days to find iron ore. If you can't produce the iron tools, you and she will both die." With that, he led his tribesmen away without a second glance. However, in my opinion, this old geezer is on par with Lodell. To think he wouldn't even spare his own kind. Because time was short, I led the goblins on a journey to find iron ore. The long trek lasted a full day and night, and it left Gobugetsu gasping for air from exhaustion. Seeing this, another goblin kicked her to the ground. "You ugly thing, how dare you slack off? If we don't find iron ore, we'll beat you to death." As they spoke, more goblins joined in on the beating. However, a rock suddenly hit one of them on the head. At first, these goblins were furious with my actions, but after they heard me say that before we reached the valley ahead, if they still hadn't found a single piece of ore, I would kill them without hesitation. The group of goblins was instantly scared stiff. They ran off, tossing a harsh threat over their shoulders. "You just wait. Once we find the iron ore, the boss won't let you get away with this." Hearing this, I naturally understood what they meant. Even if I delivered the weapons on time, it was only a matter of time before that goblin chieftain killed me. But then I remembered the saying, if a male goblin combines with a female goblin, the male goblin can become the legendary Goblin King. I wiped away her tears and said, Gobugetsu, are you willing to be with me? If you're with me, I'll protect you from now on. I'll give you the best food to eat, and the warmest nest to sleep in. And anyone who dares to bully you, I will make them pay the price. After hearing this, Gobugetsu quickly asked if I was telling the truth, and I assured her that I always keep my word. But to avoid being bullied, I need you to help me get stronger. But when she learned that the way to get stronger was to have children together, Gobugetsu said in a shy yet expectant tone, is that really okay? If that's what it takes to make you stronger, I'm willing. 5 seconds later, the system suddenly sent a notification. It said the host would have a total of 7 children with Gobugetsu in the future. Not only had my level cap been raised, but all my attributes had also been boosted to a certain extent. Looking at my transformed body, I felt my chances of winning against the goblin priest had become much greater. I then draped my clothes over Gobugetsu and said, from this day on, you're mine. I'll protect you for the rest of my life. But suddenly, a goblin's cry for help came from a short distance away. Then I saw a goblin frantically fleeing, and behind him was a wolf-like magical beast. But what surprised me even more was that the thing this guy was clutching was actually iron ore. I ordered Gobugetsu to wait where she was. As for that wolf, it would be a good chance to test my strength. Just as the goblin was about to lose his life, I plunged my knife straight into the beast's neck. In less than 2.5 seconds, the wolf-like beast collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Hearing me demand the iron ore, the goblin couldn't stop trembling under an invisible pressure. I then praised him, well done. Go find some more. When you get back, I'll make weapons for all of you. Soon, the day came to deliver the weapons. Seeing the finished product easily pierce a monster's head, the goblins present were stunned on the spot. For a moment, all the goblins showed a look of desire for this new weapon. But the goblin chieftain's expression was incredibly grim. To prevent his authority in the tribe from being challenged, he immediately said with a malicious smile, I didn't expect you to actually be able to make iron tools. But it's not that simple if you want to stay. Make 50 of these weapons within 2 days, and I'll agree to let you stay. As soon as he said this, even his own tribesmen couldn't help but complain. How has the boss become like a human, going back on his word? In response to this, I just sneered. Just you wait. You'll pay the price for your deceit. After working for 2 long days and nights, 50 iron spears were successfully completed. The goblins were not only deeply impressed with me, but their address for me also changed from outsider to big bro. Meanwhile, the goblin chieftain changed his tune completely, announcing a celebration to welcome the new member to the tribe. He said everyone could eat their fill tonight. Before long, Gobu Yu handed me a roasted suckling pig, saying it was a special meal the chieftain had saved just for me. However, the moment I took a bite, my whole body collapsed to the ground in agony. At almost the exact same time, a figure slowly appeared before me. I heard the goblin chieftain laugh mockingly. And here I thought you were a clever one, you foolish outsider. Don't think for a second I couldn't see your ambition. Challenge my authority as high priest? The only way out is death, understand? With that, he grabbed Gobu Yu who was standing beside him. You seem to care a great deal about her. Then enjoy the show as this traitor dies by your own weapon. But then, with a soft thud, the goblin chieftain's arm suddenly fell to the ground. When he realized what had happened, his face was filled with disbelief. He couldn't understand how I still had the strength to fight back. I retorted with a cold laugh. You're the foolish one. I knew you were going to poison me from the start. I was just playing along with your little act. Hearing this, the goblin chieftain flew into a rage. The next second, he grabbed his weapon and charged at me. However, for the man I am now, dodging his attacks was almost too easy. As my blade struck his neck, the goblin chieftain's head instantly rolled onto the ground. The sight made the other goblins tremble in fear. But then they heard me shout, from this day forward, I am your new boss. I will lead you to conquer the elves and the humans, and you will all breed to your heart's content. You will have an endless supply of meat to eat. At that moment, all the goblins cheered excitedly, shouting, Boss, we'll follow your orders from now on. Seeing that this mob of goblins had submitted, I pointed to the goblin chieftain's corpse and announced, This is your reward. Enjoy the feast. The moment I finished speaking, the goblins swarmed the body like a pack of wolves. The thought that I had now subjugated the goblin tribe, and that next I would use the elves to breed an even stronger generation, brought a smile to my lips. Little did I know, a figure in the bushes was watching everything. And she was none other than the elven princess, Cassandra. An unknown amount of time passed. A figure darted swiftly through the elven village. But before the guards could even ask what was happening, Cassandra pushed past them and went straight to the Queen Mother's chambers. And just as she pushed the door open, shouting, Mother, I have something important to report, the scene before her made her blush beet red. The elven queen was enjoying the services of multiple male elves. Just as Cassandra was about to leave, the elven queen stopped her and asked why she was in such a hurry. Cassandra quickly explained, the morning before last, while I was patrolling the corrupted forest, I saw a giant black bear being eaten by goblins. Logically, it should be impossible for goblins to kill such a high-level monster. But just a few days ago, I personally witnessed a young goblin successfully kill the old chieftain and become their new leader. So, it's very likely he's the cause of this disturbance in the goblin tribe. Hearing this, the elven queen just scoffed. In her eyes, no matter how strong a goblin became, they were still weak, low-level monsters. She then gave an order. Cassandra, take a few elves and go clean them up. Remember to leave a few alive and bring them back. You know, a potion made from the hearts of living goblins is the best tonic for the male elves of our tribe. Just as Cassandra agreed with a blush, the elven queen added, my dear princess, you've worked hard these past few days. How about mother rewards you with a handsome male elf tonight? Hearing this, Cassandra refused and practically fled the room as if escaping for her life. Meanwhile, back in the goblin tribe, I listened to a goblin's report. He said one branch represented one treehouse, and that in the myriad forest, there were a total of 30 such branches. I praised the goblin for a job well done, promising to reward him with 2 elves after we conquered their village. But I soon fell into deep thought. After all, based on an average of 2 elves per treehouse, the enemy will have at least 60 troops, and each elf's overall combat power is around 200. But when I think about how I've been leading the whole tribe to relentlessly hunt and devour all kinds of magical beasts, the goblins in my tribe have undergone a massive transformation, both in their skills and their levels. I smiled confidently. You see, with each goblin having a combat power of 250, it's almost impossible to lose this fight. But just to avoid any surprises, I activated my simulation system. The result, however, was that our surefire ambush was countered by the elves' own trap, leading to my entire army being annihilated. As the system displayed a message that the enemy had us completely figured out, I knew there was only one possibility. My tribe was under the elves' surveillance. Realizing this, I immediately activated my perception ability. You have to understand, even though goblins are the weakest race, our hearing and sense of smell are incredibly sharp. It didn't take long to find our target in the tall grass far away. As night fell, just as Cassandra was about to lead her people back to report, an arrow suddenly hit her. Even as all her companions fell to the ground, she still couldn't understand. Why had they been discovered? It even felt like her own body wouldn't obey her. Just then, a voice called out, well, look who decided to show up right on time. Then, I gave an order to the goblins behind me. All right, boys. Take every last one of these invaders back with us. As the unconscious Cassandra was jolted awake by a splash of goblin saliva, I pinched her chin, lost in thought. From her current condition, it wasn't hard to tell that goblin saliva has a special paralyzing and stimulating effect on female creatures. In other words, my odds of winning against the matriarchal elven race had just shot up considerably. Seeing this, Cassandra gritted her teeth and spat angrily, you lowly things. Kidnapping me, a princess, is bad enough. But you actually delude yourselves into thinking you can attack the entire elven race? If not for my mother's mercy, your pathetic, bug-like race would have been exterminated long ago. Hearing that, I threw her to the ground. You elves can clearly eradicate every goblin in this forest, yet you deliberately let some of us survive and breed. And the reason for that it's not just mercy, is it? Then I pointed to a goblin beside me. My men might be stupid, but they never lie. She recalled her mother's words. Remember to leave a few goblins alive to make potions with. Cassandra was instantly struck dumb, feeling as if a fundamental belief inside her was crumbling. But I just scoffed at her, telling her there was no need to explain. I'd be paying the elven village a personal visit tonight to find out for myself. I also made sure to order my boys to share the captured elves amongst themselves. After all, goblins have the unique ability to devour the skills of their enemies. As she saw my gaze fall upon her. Once the combination was complete, the system notified me that I had broken through the level cap. I had also acquired the elven skills of stealth and night vision. I don't know how much time passed, but in a treehouse in the elven village, the elf queen was caringly stroking a male elf. She was saying that she should have caught more goblins last time, otherwise, they wouldn't be running low on potions. When the elf queen asked why Cassandra hadn't returned, an elven soldier quickly knelt and replied. It seems Princess Cassandra has been gone for quite some time. By all rights, she should have returned by now. Just as the elf queen ordered her soldiers to go check on the situation and, while they were at it, catch some more goblins for potions. A voice suddenly echoed from outside the treehouse. Don't waste your time. Your dear Cassandra isn't coming back. The next second, an arrow shot that elven soldier right through the head. This sudden turn of events gave the elf queen a tremendous shock. Meanwhile, I strolled casually into the treehouse and said, we're all one big family now. You'll be holding your goblin grandchildren soon enough. The elf queen snatched her weapon, demanding to know what I did to her Cassandra. But when she heard my reply, what do you think? She could no longer contain her fury and lunged at me. But I easily dodged her attack, making sure to inform her that her entire elven village was currently under siege. If she surrendered obediently, I might consider treating her well. As time ticked by, the elf queen suddenly collapsed onto the ground, completely powerless. To make sure she understood why she was defeated, I explained that the sword she had grabbed was coated with a goblin sleeping potion. Once contact exceeds 2.5 seconds, the body becomes paralyzed. Afterward, I lifted the elf queen's chin and said, "I heard out there that you use goblins to make potions. Do you never think that one day, we would come to settle the score?" Hearing this, the elf queen finally realized. The goblin before her was the new leader that Cassandra had mentioned. Just then, the sounds of goblins and elves fighting came from outside the window. As the elf queen was dragged to the window to look down, what she saw was her people being mercilessly slaughtered by the goblin army. Coming to her senses, the elf queen immediately demanded, "What in the world are you beasts trying to do?" Upon hearing her words, my gaze turned cold. "When you elves were strong, you slaughtered goblins. Now that we goblins are strong, it's only natural that we've come for revenge. So, you'd better accept reality." It wasn't until she heard me say that I needed more and stronger warriors, and that the survival of the other elves in the tribe depended entirely on her performance as their matriarch, that the elf queen froze on the spot. But the thought of her people being slaughtered made her kneel and beg, "As long as you don't kill my children, we elves are willing to submit at your feet." Then, as if she had made some kind of resolution, she added, "I can lead my people to breed a stronger next generation for your goblin race." Just like that, the entire elf tribe was brought back to the goblin settlement. Watching from inside the cage what the goblins were doing to her people, Cassandra threw herself into her mother's arms, crying bitterly. She asked if this was the end for the elf race. The elf queen, with a desolate expression, said, "All that's left of our tribe now are women and children. If we want to preserve the elven bloodline, our only choice is to unconditionally cooperate with them." Seeing the elf queen comfort Cassandra and tell her they could only survive in the goblin tribe from now on, I told them to just wait peacefully for childbirth. I would prepare plenty of food, and I emphasized that they'd better not get any funny ideas. Otherwise, I would send them on their way without the slightest hesitation. But unexpectedly, the elf queen clung to the bars of the cage and pleaded, "I will follow your arrangements. But those over there are my children. Can you let me take care of them personally?" Hearing this, I glanced behind me. I saw Goblin Yu looking after a large group of children all by herself. Since I knew full well that the queen was being driven by her powerful maternal instincts, I told Goblin Yu to let the queen take care of the children from now on. After all, even though these kids weren't goblins, once they grew up, they would also bring a force to be reckoned with to the tribe. After settling that, I opened my system panel, intending to check the stats I gained from my union with the elf queen. From the system panel, I learned that the aptitude boost the host received had been converted into various stats. At that moment, I came to a conclusion. My aptitude had already been unlocked to the highest level. Otherwise, the values I'd recently obtained wouldn't have turned out this way. A smile crept onto my face as I thought of this. It seems that from now on, I just need to continuously breed with the strong to infinitely increase my own power. Half a month flew by, and the cries of newborns could be heard in the goblin tribe. Seeing the children born from their own wombs, the elven women recoiled in terror. "How can my child be so ugly?" they cried. "This is disgusting." A sudden scream came from nearby. The source was the elven princess, who was having a difficult birth. Faced with the elf queen's tearful pleas to save her, crying that it was her first time giving birth and she wasn't going to make it, I decisively ordered Goblin Yu to hold her legs open. Seeing her enemy approach to deliver her baby, Cassandra said with an exhausted face, "I don't need you to save me." I just told her to shut up, declaring, "The child in your belly is mine, too." I don't know how much time passed, but with my help, 3 little goblins were born safely. And Goblin Yu, turning into a little fangirl, praised, "That was amazing. You actually saved her from death's door." Just then, someone behind me suddenly screamed for help. I saw 2 goblins pouncing on a female elf. They were shouting, "Time to use her again," when there was a sickening squelch. One of the goblins was stabbed straight through the heart on the spot. This sight made the other goblin collapse to the ground in fear. He never imagined that his boss would act so decisively. With a dark expression, I faced all the goblins and said, "I told you, you are not to breed with them until they have rested and recovered. Any fool who dares to defy my orders will die." Then I added, "From now on, each elf will be given double their usual amount of food." Seeing this, the female elf's gaze softened considerably. She felt that the goblin before her was fundamentally different from the others. That night, sitting by the campfire, I fell into deep thought. The goblin tribe had entered a period of stability. We've even produced offspring with the elves that are stronger than average. Although my current strength is enough to crush Lodel, the strength of his companions is still an unknown. Thinking of this, I activated the Goblin Life Simulation System. To my utter surprise, the system indicated that while I was hunting down Lodel, his master, the Sword Maiden, would suddenly appear. She would kill me with her overwhelming power, and I would die horribly under her sword. She would then lead Lodel back to the royal capital, never to be seen again. And the system's summary was, Faced with the powerful sword maiden, you have absolutely no chance of escape. Seeing this result left me stunned. Setting aside a powerful warrior like the sword maiden, why would she appear in a place like this? Moreover, once Lodell leaves Bright Town, finding them to complete my revenge will become extremely difficult. Just as I was thinking that my time was running out, Gobugetsu suddenly walked toward the Elf Queen's cage carrying food. In that moment, a solution instantly flashed in my mind. I walked over and told Gobugetsu that I was going to scout human territory for a few days, and asked her to look after matters big and small in the tribe. Hearing this, the Elf Queen quickly tried to stop me. Are you crazy? If you're discovered in human territory, you'll be surrounded and killed. But after hearing that I was going for revenge, the Elf Queen said with great worry, well, you still can't be so reckless. How about I cast a stealth skill on you? That way, the humans won't be able to find you. Having achieved my goal, the corner of my mouth turned up slightly. That's exactly what I was waiting for you to say. As the Elf Queen was casting the skill, I said with amusement. I never thought you'd be concerned about my safety. How rare. Hearing this, the Elf Queen, ever the survivor, explained that she was afraid the other goblins would become even crueler if I died. Only if you return safely will we have any guarantee of our own safety. And just like that, I once again set out on the road to the human village. The next day, in Bright Town, seeing the streets filled with patrolling soldiers, I couldn't help but ponder while hiding in the shadows. Judging by the sudden increase in city defenses, it's highly likely the Sword Maiden has already arrived in town. But what made me curious was that despite my extensive inquiries, I couldn't get a single piece of information about her. But then, I suddenly noticed something. A large crowd was gathered in front of a nearby notice board. I saw that among the adventurer parties listed for Bright Town, Liddell's party, Sharp Blade, had reached the #1 rank. I knew my time was running out. I had to find a useful clue as soon as possible, or my revenge plan would be postponed indefinitely. However, just as I was passing a certain tavern, a familiar voice suddenly came from inside. Drinks are on me today. Everyone, drink your fill. Realizing who it was, I was immediately thrilled. To think that after searching high and low, my quarry would just fall right into my lap. So, without hesitation, I walked into the tavern. I heard one of Liddell's companions say that when he encountered the four-armed ape demon, if it hadn't been for Avelia and the party leader arriving in time, he'd probably be a corpse by now. Hearing that, a man nearby couldn't help but scoff. You're actually proud of a mere four-armed ape demon? How utterly ridiculous. Of course, those words successfully enraged the man, who furiously asked if their Bosi guild had nothing better to do than stir up trouble. Just as the members of the two adventurer guilds were about to come to blows, the tavern owner nonchalantly chimed in. The dragons on Dragon Island are in their breeding season right now. Not only do they eat any human they see, they're also stealing livestock from herders everywhere. If you're really that capable, go slay some dragons. Don't cause a ruckus in my small establishment. Hearing this, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. The dragon clan in their breeding season? But then, I saw the man add, if the vile dragon horde attacks Bright Town, and the royal capital can't send reinforcements in time, I'm afraid we're doomed this time. As his voice trailed off, the entire tavern instantly fell silent. Only Lord let out a scornful laugh. He said his master, the Sword Saintess, was already on her way. All it would take is for his master and the Adventurers Guild to fight together. At that point, there'd be no need for the royal capital to send troops. If that vile dragon horde comes, they'll only be walking to their deaths. Upon hearing this, the crowd immediately erupted in cheers, exclaiming that if they succeeded this time, Lord would surely become the great hero of Bright Town. In response, Lord threw down a bag of gold coins. He announced that everyone's drinks tonight were on him, as an early celebration for the Saintess's arrival and their victory in slaying the dragons. Just then, Lord noticed a figure getting up to leave, so he stopped me and said, "Hey, brave warrior, not staying for a few more drinks?" I turned my head and told him there was no need, explaining that there would be plenty more opportunities in the future. What he didn't know, however, was that as I turned away, I couldn't stop a smile from spreading across my face. You see, an event like vile dragons attacking the town was undoubtedly the perfect opportunity to carry out my revenge. After some time, the Sword Saintess arrived in Bright Town as promised. At this moment, Lord was in a church, respectfully beginning to report on the recent situation on Dragon Island. After listening, the Sword Saintess asked him if the arrangements had been properly made. It wasn't until Lord explained that 10 dragon-slaying ballistas had been completed that the Sword Saintess emphasized that they must be deployed perfectly. Otherwise, it would be her, his master, who would lose face. The two had just stepped out of the church when they saw a large crowd gathered below. From time to time, you could even hear a few catcalls. So that's the Sword Saintess? I can't imagine what kind of man could ever conquer her. Hearing this, the Sword Saintess's expression darkened. She decisively ordered Lord to disperse the crowd, otherwise she wouldn't be able to stop herself from cutting down everyone present with a single stroke. As evening approached, the tranquility of Bright Town was suddenly shattered. A crimson wyvern was seen grabbing an innocent villager and slowly ascending into the sky. The sword saintess recognized it at a glance as a scout dragon. Knowing well that if one of them was here, it would surely draw out a large horde of vile dragons, she gave a decisive order. Lord, take your companions and follow me to the city walls. Prepare for battle. At the same time, in the goblin tribe, a goblin ran up to me and shouted. Boss, the dragons are here. There are a lot of human soldiers gathering on the city walls now. What should we do? To this, I simply waved my hand and ordered all the goblins to wait and watch the show. And to launch a sneak attack when the time is right. Upon receiving the order, the goblin army was itching for a fight. After all, a goblin who doesn't want to ride a dragon is not a good goblin. Meanwhile, on the other side, all of Bright Town was under attack by a large number of vile dragons. In response, the sword saintess ordered the ballista bolts to be brought over at once. And she demanded her subordinates watch carefully how to use the dragon-slaying ballistas. With a flash of cold light, its terrifying power pierced straight through one of the wyverns. This scene deeply shocked both Lord and Avelia. Under the continuous volley from the 10 dragon-slaying ballistas, the wyverns high in the sky were shot down one after another. However, before the town's residents could even have a moment of happiness, a deafening roar suddenly echoed from within the clouds, so powerful that the ordinary soldiers on the city walls, they were instantly rendered powerless as a colossal dragon appeared in their sights. Seeing this, Lord's brow furrowed. He couldn't for the life of him understand why the purple gold dragon mother of Dragon Island was here. Hearing the shouts from the city walls to counterattack with the dragon-slaying ballisti, the purple gold dragon mother immediately began to charge up her skill. With a deafening roar, a searing blast of dragon's breath rocketed towards the watchtower. The soldiers on the tower scattered in terror. The sword saintess slammed her weapon into the ground and yelled, "Everyone, hold your ground. You all focus on defending the walls. I'll handle the purple gold dragon mother." With that, she unleashed her high-level sword skill, Sword Chi Tempest. Under the protection of this blue aura, the purple gold dragon mother's dragon breath was instantly repelled. Of course, I was watching all of this unfold from the mountaintop. The only one who gave me pause was the sword saintess. After all, judging by her current overall combat strength, she was the true monster here. However, even if the sword saintess was slightly stronger than the purple gold dragon mother, two of them wouldn't be able to decide a victor anytime soon. It wasn't until I saw the purple gold dragon mother fly out of the city with the sword saintess in tow that I knew my chance for revenge against the humans had finally arrived. So, I decisively ordered the goblins to enter the city as planned. One squad will create a diversion, while the other lies in ambush. Upon receiving the order, the goblin army immediately responded, "Yes, boss." Meanwhile, in the town, Lord laughed as he looked at the dead wyvern on the ground. A beast is a beast. From this day forward, I am a dragon slayer. But the next second, a voice suddenly shouted from behind him. "This is bad. Goblins have invaded the town." Everyone who heard this was in complete disbelief, yelling, "You can't be serious. No matter how stupid goblins are, they wouldn't show up here." But they were quickly forced to eat their words. Not far off, they saw two goblins pouncing on a human woman. Seeing this, Lord gritted his teeth in fury. He then shouted to the other two, "There aren't many dragons left. You two hold them off. Evria and I will take care of those goblins." Little did they know, this move led them right into the goblins' trap. Just as Lord and Evria passed a sewer opening, the goblin squad leader hiding inside slowly ordered, "Get them." In an instant, Lord was completely incapacitated. Evria, on the other hand, was stuffed into a net. Seeing their leader captured by goblins, the other two men just wanted to end the fight in front of them as quickly as possible. But with their attention focused forward, they completely failed to notice a figure slowly approaching from behind. Even though Lord immediately screamed at them to watch out, it was too late to stop them from being decapitated on the spot. They then heard me say nonchalantly, "I didn't expect to catch you all so easily. I thought I'd have to put in a little more effort." Lord roared in fury, "You vile goblins. I'll kill you." But his words were met with a vicious kick to the head. What an idiot. Why don't you take a good look at your situation before you run your mouth? After that, I ordered them to be taken back to our camp. As for the rest, they were to follow me to the watchtower to deal with the archers. After some time, the sword saintess finally noticed something was amiss. She didn't know why goblins would launch a surprise attack on the town now, but she was completely unable to break away. Because before her stood the purple gold dragon mother in her demi-human form. As the dragon mother launched an attack, a fierce glint appeared in the sword saintess's eyes. In the next instant, several slashes cut across the purple gold dragon mother's body. This was her ultimate sword skill, Steel Gale. The sword saintess had intended to finish her off in one fell swoop. But suddenly, a massive explosion erupted from within the town. Seeing this, the purple gold dragon mother let out a wicked smile. She remarked how those goblins had perfect timing, then vanished in a flash, seizing the chance to flee the battle. She didn't forget to leave a parting shot. Once she had recovered, she would definitely be back for revenge. Afterward, watching the purple gold dragon mother's retreating figure, the sword saintess's gaze turned cold and sharp. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll slaughter every last one of you dragons. Not long after, in a nearby town, the sword saintess was furiously cursing Lordle, calling him a useless fool. To think he let a bunch of goblins turn the town upside down just then, a villager rushed towards her, crying out, "Lady Saintess! Lordle and Ifria have been taken by the goblins." Upon hearing this, the sword saintess lost all composure. In her mind, while Lordle's skills weren't exactly top tier, they should have been more than enough to handle a group of weak goblins. But when the villager told her the enemy's strength was comparable to a greater species, and that Lordle was beaten without even a chance to fight back, the sword saintess immediately decided to slaughter the entire goblin tribe and rescue them at once. Just as she was about to leave, someone grabbed her by the hand and cried out, "Lady Saintess, I'm begging you, please stay. What if those vicious dragons or the goblins launch a surprise attack? We won't be able to fend them off." As she finished speaking, the surrounding villagers all fell to their knees and began to plead with her. After weighing the pros and cons, the sword saintess had no choice but to abandon her plan. After all, compared to rescuing a captured member of the knightly order, her duty was to protect the temple and the people of the empire. The next day, a voice echoed through the goblin tribe, "Hey, the boss actually came back with 2 humans." Ifria and Lordle were seen being dragged into the tribe, then unceremoniously thrown into a corner. Lordle looked at the scene before him and gasped, "These goblins, they're even raising elves like livestock." Meanwhile, Ifria was panting heavily beside him, explaining that there was most likely a champion-class goblin in this tribe. Coming to his senses, Lordle asked about her poisoning. Ifria replied that the toxin was very potent. With her constitution, it would take at least a few more minutes to recover. But soon, my voice rang in her ear. "I didn't expect the drug to wear off so quickly. Ifria, your regenerative abilities are quite impressive." Then, without another word, I placed my hand on her thigh, causing Ifria to cry out in alarm. "What in the world do you think you're doing?" Hearing her words, I slowly began to speak. "You'll find out soon enough." With a sickening squelch, my fingers pierced right through her skin. The intense pain made her scream uncontrollably. Seeing this, Lordle immediately started screaming curses, "You damn monster. Let her go." But the next second, the berserker goblin slapped him right across the face. "That'll teach you to shout at the boss." But even as he was knocked to the ground, he didn't forget to make a threat, saying his master was the human sword saint. "When my master gets here, not a single goblin in this tribe will escape." Hearing this, I gave a wicked smile. "Your master? She's just another piece of prey to me. Besides, I sent my minions to cover our tracks long ago. There's no way she'll be able to find this place." But just to be safe, I ordered the berserker to lead a team into the forest to hunt some magical beasts. That way, I could complete the next phase of my plan. Then, I stomped right on top of Lordle. I told him to answer my questions properly or he might find himself missing a body part. He heard me ask if the members of his knightly order enjoyed secretly imprisoning and torturing goblins. Lordle subconsciously retorted, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Suddenly, a cold glint of steel flashed past his ear. The next second, Lordle was rolling on the ground in agony. But he quickly gritted through the pain and replied, "Exterminating you damned monsters is our duty." In response, I just sneered. "I think you mean it's a way to constantly improve your own standing. Just kill the inconvenient human captives along with the monsters. It's much simpler than actually saving them, isn't it? And you, who call yourselves righteous, you must have climbed to where you are now by stepping on countless corpses, haven't you?" By now, the faces of both Lordle and Ifria were filled with terror. They couldn't possibly understand how this goblin in front of them knew about the things they had done in private. And I added one more thing, "Since you all see me as an evil monster, well then, I don't have to pretend to be some self-proclaimed hero anymore. So, Avelia, let's start by teaching you a lesson." As Avelia, who had been brutally tackled, cried out for help, Lordle's desperate cry of, "Stop," instantly echoed throughout the entire tribe. Finally, at a certain moment, I grabbed Avelia and said, "Next, let Lordle enjoy your little performance. You'd better hold on for me." And under Lordle's horrified gaze, a group of greedy goblins pounced on Avelia. After a whole night of being bombarded by the goblins in turns, Avelia had lost all of her former radiance. In its place was a half-dead appearance. But before Lordle could even ask about Avelia's condition, a nearby goblin went up and gave him a harsh shove. "Shut up, human. Did I say you could speak?" Of course, this made Kasana, who was not far away, feel relieved. After all, up to this point, they had never been abused by the goblins. Seeing this, the elf queen muttered to herself, "These goblins are so ruthless. Could it be that Lin Tian has a grudge against humans?" Just then, Gob Yu suddenly lifted the tent flap. I heard before that he was going to seek revenge on the humans. It seems that's most likely true. Hearing this, the elf queen offered her opinion. In her view, Lin Tian's vengeful personality was undoubtedly the most special among all the goblins she had ever seen. Seeing her own mother lost in a strange fantasy, Asana's mouth couldn't help but twitch, thinking to herself that her mother must have been completely conquered by Lin Tian. Meanwhile, in the goblin tribe, a goblin came up to me and shouted, "Boss, the second-generation goblins we sent out to hunt have returned." As his voice fell, the goblin army, carrying their prey, appeared in our line of sight. By this time, Gob Kwang's physique had clearly changed. According to the system panel, he had now evolved into a hobgoblin, and his stats were only a little bit lower than my own. But what made me even more curious was that they had returned from their hunt far too quickly this time. Perhaps sensing the doubt in my mind, Gob Kwang explained that they had basically killed all the monsters nearby. However, in the jungle to the west, they encountered hobgoblins slaughtering other goblin tribes. When I asked which tribe those goblins belonged to, Gob Tian immediately stood up and gestured wildly. "Boss, when we split up to hunt monsters before, we found the mark of a bloody fang in several of the attacked tribes. So the enemy should all be goblins from the Bloodfang tribe, and all the goblins in their tribe are hobgoblins." Seeing this, a wicked smile spread across my face. In other words, if I captured their leader, I could use them to create a third generation of even stronger goblins. Chances of repelling the human invasion would be much greater then. But just at that moment, Lordle, who was off to the side, suddenly burst out laughing, boasting that no matter how powerful the goblins we nurtured were, they wouldn't even last a single round against his master, the Sword Saint. Hearing this, my gaze turned cold. If you hadn't spoken, I would have thought you were already dead. I then decisively gave an order to all the goblins. "For those of you who missed out on Avelia last night, here's another human. A little treat for you all." As several goblins rushed towards him, they were muttering that it was finally their turn. Lordle's composure broke on the spot, and he screamed in terror, "What are you demons doing?" Even Avelia, hearing the blood-curdling screams behind her, felt an inexplicable chill run down her spine. After a full 2.5 hours of torture, Lordle finally experienced what Avelia had gone through. In contrast, the goblins were holding a grand bonfire party. When the elf queen asked me if we were really going to attack the Bloodfang tribe next, I gave her a firm yes, without any hesitation. I emphasized that not only would I capture their leader, but I would also, in a short period of time, forge our Quangtian tribe into the most powerful existence. As soon as I said this, Gob Kwang and Gob Tian immediately started cheering. Even the entire tribe erupted with shouts of, "All hail the boss." Who would have thought that Gob Yu would suddenly approach me and say that the Bloodfang tribe had already wiped out many other tribes, and they seemed to be incredibly strong. If we couldn't defeat them, we'd be in big trouble. But I just turned my gaze towards Avelia. "Don't you worry. I, Lin Tian, never fight a battle I'm not confident I can win. Besides, I still have a trump card up my sleeve." Soon, on the following day in the demonized forest, after reaching the mountaintop, I observed the distant Bloodcliff tribe. Judging by their overall strength, they certainly had a lot of hobgoblins, but that's not enough to be a threat to me. As a figure suddenly flung open the tent flap, all the goblins present were scared stiff, trembling in fear. The moment the figure was fully revealed, even I couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Because this goblin was a hero-class goblin, a rank even above the hobgoblins. Fortunately, however, its overall combat power was only 900. A dozen or so of my goblin warriors should be enough to handle it. But based on its physique and abilities, poison and paralysis likely won't be effective against it. And capturing it alive would be no easy task. Then, suddenly, I had an idea. Back when I was in the goblin nest, Iphigenia used a certain spell on me. Perhaps that ability could work on this thing. With that thought, I returned to the goblin tribe. Of course, I also learned from my goblin underlings that at this moment, Iphigenia's will and body were on the verge of collapse. I saw her lying on the ground, begging the goblins to kill her, so she could atone for her sins in the eyes of her god. I knew this was the perfect opportunity to give her hope, so I took out a hot towel and began to wipe her down. However, the moment Iphigenia saw my face clearly, she was instantly filled with terror, screaming, "Stay away from me." The next second, she fell into a frenzied state, yelling, "You demon. I'm begging you, just kill me. I don't want to live anymore." With a loud smack, I slapped her across the face without a moment's hesitation. Then, as she stared at me in disbelief, I pulled her into my arms and whispered gently, "Iphigenia, your punishment is over." Hearing this, Iphigenia clung to my words like a lifeline, asking if it was really true. In response, I soothed her while promising that I am a man of my word. But on one condition: you will have to choose a new faith. At these words, Iphigenia froze on the spot. She asked me what faith I was talking about, but when I explained that from this day forward, she just had to renounce the god she had always believed in, and instead, choose to believe in me and become my pet, and her daily suffering would end, Iphigenia didn't even hesitate. She immediately began to whimper like a small puppy. Seeing this, I couldn't help but praise her. "Iphigenia, you're doing very well. Then from now on, I am your one and only master, and you are my little pet." Upon hearing this, Iphigenia immediately prostrated herself on the floor, saying that from now on, she would be her master's most obedient dog. A short while later, I carried her to a nearby hot spring, planning to help her wash off all the filth. Feeling the warmth of the hot water, Iphigenia spoke. Master, you're so good to me. I, Iphigenia, am willing to give everything for you. Hearing this, I knew the time was right. So, I told her I wanted to see her use the Cage of Holy Light spell. At first, Iphigenia was curious about what skill this was, but very quickly, a spellbook we had confiscated from the elves was brought out. As Iphigenia began to chant the spell from its pages, a wave of golden runes instantly filled the air around us. At that moment, the spellbook began to emit a dazzling light. The next second, a cage exuding a sacred aura appeared before my very eyes. Seeing this unfold, I was overjoyed. After all, with this, I could easily capture the leader of the Bloodfang tribe. But just as I was leading Iphigenia to gather my forces, the sound of footsteps behind us caught Lordal's attention. When he realized what was happening, he immediately shouted in excitement. This is great, Iphigenia. Now that you've recovered, hurry up and kill that goblin, then use your magic to heal my body. Then, I smirked at Lodal and said, can't you see? Ifria has willingly submitted to me. Hearing this, Lodal's face was filled with utter disbelief. He proclaimed that Ifria was the daughter of the Holy Order's leader and that it was impossible for her to be tamed by a mere goblin. I just sneered at that. Ifria, tell him if you're doing this of your own free will. With a thud, Ifria knelt on the ground without a second thought. Then, while rubbing her head against the corner of my clothes, she replied, Master, Ifria is doing all of this willingly. Lodal was completely stunned by this scene, unable to comprehend what was happening. However, after a brief moment of silence, he suddenly burst out laughing. He said that the only reason goblins existed in this tribe was to be lambs for the Holy Order to slaughter. Although I hadn't expected Ifria to be the daughter of the Order's leader, to thank Lodal for providing such important information, I ordered Gobukyo not to let him stay idle. He had to have the goblins in the tribe give him a taste of what we've got. After taking care of that, I turned to Ifria and said, let's go. It's time for us to take down the Bloodfang tribe. A short while later, in the Bloodfang tribe's camp, the tribe's second-in-command was reporting that the army had been fully assembled. In response, the Bloodfang chieftain immediately raised his arm and roared. Today, we'll raid and wipe out the goblin tribe to the south. We'll snatch all the elves and their clan and have our fun with them. As soon as he said this, the goblins present erupted in cheers. But then, a large goblin approached. Boss, a goblin broke into the camp and says he's looking for you. As his voice fell, my figure appeared in the Bloodfang chieftain's line of sight. Before he could react, I smirked, took off my hat, and stated my purpose. Bloodfang chieftain, I know you are a hero-grade goblin with human intelligence. So I've come here to have a talk with you. Hearing this, the Bloodfang chieftain was taken aback. He subconsciously asked if I was a mutant goblin. I, on the other hand, swaggered toward him. I explained that I was just a bit smarter than a normal goblin, but in essence, I was still just a low-grade goblin. And while this group of goblins was still dazed, I looked around and announced. I am the leader of the Kyodan tribe. I have decided I'm taking your leader with me. As for the rest of you, I'll give you two choices. Either submit to my tribe, or you all die here. The Bloodfang chieftain instantly snapped back to reality upon hearing this. This goblin was the leader of that tribe that was keeping elves. And I just spread my hands and added, Bloodfang chieftain, I've taken a liking to your hero-grade goblin genes. Now, go back and become my breeding machine. With a loud whoosh, a large hand instantly grabbed my head. Idiot, I was just about to head to your tribe. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself right to my doorstep. After I slaughter all of you, those female elves will all be mine. Seeing the surrounding goblins shouting, the boss is mighty. Crush this reckless goblin, I couldn't help but sigh. I felt like I was really wasting my breath here. The next second, a cold light flashed, accompanied by a voice. If I didn't need to take you, a hero-grade goblin, alive, I wouldn't have bothered saying all this nonsense. And before the Bloodfang chieftain's astonished eyes, the arm he was using to grab me suddenly snapped in two. At first, the goblins didn't understand what had happened, but when they heard their chieftain clutch his arm in pain and roar, what are you idiots waiting for? Get over here and kill this low-grade goblin for me. At that moment, all the goblins present charged at me. Unfazed, I raised my arm. Come on out, this tribe no longer needs to exist. As I spoke, a blade pierced through the Bloodfang tribe's second-in-command. Gobukyo, having deactivated his stealth skill, appeared behind him. And that wasn't all. Model. The goblin berserker directly in front appeared and delivered the finishing blow. Before long, the coarse voices of the goblin berserkers echoed all around. The leader has given the order. Slaughter the entire Bloodfang tribe. Seeing his tribesmen fall one by one before his very eyes, the Bloodfang chieftain couldn't understand it at all. He couldn't understand why so many goblin warriors had suddenly appeared here, but he quickly realized what was happening. This was all a plot by the goblins standing before him, with the sole purpose of wiping out their Bloodfang tribe completely. Understanding the full picture, the blood-fanged chieftain knew the battle was lost. However, he was confident that if he chose to flee, no one here could stop him. But just before he left, he raised his fist and charged at me. He shouted, "Even if I'm escaping, I'm taking you down first, you dark-hearted bastard." Seeing this, I wasn't the least bit panicked. Instead, I calmly called out Ievregna's name. Upon receiving my command, Ievregna immediately began to chant a spell, and golden runes slowly started to rise. The skill, Cage of Holy Light, instantly trapped the blood-fanged chieftain. He gritted his teeth in fury. After all, this kind of holy light-based magic was not a skill a goblin could possibly use. However, in the next moment, he was utterly stunned. He saw me patting a human's head and saying, "Ievregna, you're such an obedient pet. I'll give you a surprise reward when we get back." Hearing the word, reward, Ievregna's expression immediately filled with anticipation. "Master, Ievregna will forever be your most obedient dog." Afterwards, as the blood-fanged chieftain hurled insults, I walked away and said over my shoulder, "Save your breath, just go back and be a good little stud goblin for me." Although it took a great deal of effort to subdue him, judging by the blood-fanged chieftain's current condition, he was no longer a threat to the goblins. Lordle, who had witnessed everything, couldn't stop trembling. He thought to himself, that monster he actually captured a hero-class being. How in the world did he manage that? Meanwhile, I turned to Gob Yu and said, "Let the other goblins handle the breeding work from here on out. You just need to watch over them and make sure nothing goes wrong." As I said this, I pushed Ievregna over to Gob Yu. I warned her that she must behave herself for the time being. Seeing this, the elf queen instinctively asked, "Lin Tian, from the looks of it, you're scheming something again, aren't you?" Hearing her, I unbuttoned my coat and explained that I needed to go see a special friend. After all, it wasn't hard to tell from Lordle's earlier arrogance that even if the tribe could fight the Night Order head-on, if the Sword Maiden were to intervene, the entire goblin race would undoubtedly be wiped out in an instant. Therefore, I had to find an ally to keep the Sword Maiden busy. A short while later, I placed a large number of corpses on the beach. The purpose of this was to travel to Dragon Island and meet the legendary Violet Gold Dragon Mother. As long as the wyverns out hunting for food caught the scent of blood, they would take these corpses as food and carry them back to their nests hundreds of kilometers away. Before long, a wyvern swooped down towards the beach. So, I quickly hid inside the abdomen of one of the corpses. I planned to use this convenient method to reach Dragon Island, and indeed, everything went just as I had predicted. The wyvern quickly snatched up the corpses and slowly ascended, then shot away from the island at incredible speed in the next moment. After a long flight of 2.5 hours, the wyvern dropped the food into a cave. Once everything went quiet, I crawled out from the corpse's abdomen. But just as I was marveling at how these dragons didn't seem to be hunting for themselves, a voice suddenly spoke from behind me. It seems something strange got mixed in with the food. Then, the massive figure of a dragon appeared before me, demanding to know why I had snuck into her territory. Facing the immense pressure coming from the Violet Gold Dragon Mother, I quickly held up my hand to stop her. "Please, don't be angry. I've come to discuss a partnership." At these words, the Violet Gold Dragon Mother instantly realized that this goblin was the same one who had attacked Luminous Town. Although she sneered at the idea of a mere goblin daring to propose a partnership with her, the Violet Gold Dragon Mother still transformed into her human form and said, "Seeing as you've helped me before, just tell me how we're going to cooperate. If what you say doesn't satisfy me, I'll eat you without a moment's hesitation." My tone immediately became serious. "You want revenge on the Sword Saintess too, don't you? Consider it a favor for helping you escape during the last raid. How about we team up to take down the Sword Saintess?" Hearing this, the Purple Gold Dragon Mother was momentarily stunned. She couldn't fathom why a low-level monster would dare to go after the Sword Saintess. But out of curiosity, she looked me over and asked, "What can a bunch of little goblins like you possibly do? Go on, tell me. How do you plan to deal with that crazy woman?" But when I told her she only needed to dispatch her dragon soldiers to continuously harass Radiant Town, the Purple Gold Dragon Mother suddenly leaned in close. "A head-on approach won't work against that crazy woman, the Sword Saintess. So, what's your plan? You can't expect my dragon clan to do all the work, can you?" Seeing her lift my chin, I laid out the entire plan. Afterwards, the Purple Gold Dragon Mother revealed a wicked smile. "I see. Using you goblins to do my dirty work, I won't lose a single soldier. And I can get my revenge on that bitch. You goblins truly are the most sinister monsters." Hearing this, I subconsciously asked, "So, does this mean we have a deal?" The Purple Gold Dragon Mother placed her hand on my cheek. "But of course, I never thought there'd be a clever little thing like you among the goblins. The more I look at you, the more I like you." With that, the Purple Gold Dragon Mother couldn't help but lick her lips. "How about I reward you right here and now?" Seeing this, I couldn't help but sigh at how impulsive dragons are during their mating season. However, the Purple Gold Dragon Mother just snorted coldly. She said my small frame wasn't even a mouthful for her, so she decided to give me some other reward instead. A short time later, in the Guangtian tribe, Lodel watched the goblins walking back and forth. He was trying to figure out how to escape this place. You have to understand, during this time, he had suffered insane torture from the goblins, both physically and mentally. But just as he was praying for the knights to come and save him, he suddenly noticed a wyvern rapidly approaching in the distance. Realizing what was happening, he quickly yelled at the goblins, "Hurry up and untie me. I don't want to be burned to death by a wyvern's fire." Although Gobu Tien didn't know why a wyvern would appear here, his first instinct was to order his underlings to prepare for battle. But in the next second, everyone saw a figure standing on the wyvern's back. I slowly took off my hat and said softly, "Everyone, there's no need to be so tense. Your boss has returned." With that, I patted the wyvern beside me. I told it to stay put and rest, and that I'd come find it after I finished my business. Before long, shouts of, "All hail the chief," echoed through the tribe. Lodel, seeing this, looked on in utter disbelief. He thought to himself, is that thing really a goblin? Knights, please hurry and save me. At the same time, the royal knights had also arrived at Radiant Town. Seeing that the first thing this group did was salute her, the sword saintess waved her hand and shouted, "Time is short. Everyone, let's formulate a rescue plan for Lodel as quickly as possible." I was unaware of this. Instead, I was staring at the life simulation system, deep in thought. Since the third option had appeared on the panel, it meant the sword saintess wouldn't be launching a sneak attack for a while. Thinking of this, I decisively chose to skip this period of time. As the system prompted that time acceleration was starting, a spatial energy instantly filled the area. When I came to again, a month had already passed. Coming to my senses, I clutched my head. Backlash from the time jump felt too strong. And according to the system panel, although my stats had greatly improved, my overall combat power hadn't increased by much. Unexpectedly, Gobu Yu suddenly burst into the room, shouting, "Lin Tian, something's wrong. Many of the newborn goblins are stillborn." Hearing this, I hurriedly followed Gobu Yu to the scene. When I discovered that only 3 goblin cubs had survived, I couldn't help but freeze on the spot. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Just as the elf queen was asking for the reason, Lordel, who was behind me, burst out laughing. "What a bunch of brainless goblins. Don't think that just because you've obtained the bloodline of a hero rank, you can dream of raising powerful offspring." Hearing this, my gaze sharpened, and I asked him if he knew the reason why. Seeing this, Lordel's laughter grew even more unrestrained. "You think you can rule the world with your fertility? The higher the rank of the goblin, the harder it is for their young to survive." Upon hearing this, I turned my gaze to Lordel. "Well then, I'll have to thank you properly. Just for that demonic laugh of yours, I feel like I have to reward you with something." With that, I gave an order to Goblin Maniac beside me. "This person is all yours from now on. But whatever you do, don't play him to death." Seeing Goblin Maniac extend his demonic claws towards him, Lordel's face was instantly filled with terror. "You're a ruthless one. I won't let you go even if I become a vengeful ghost." But I paid no attention to his curses. Instead, I was pondering what method I could use to cultivate a large number of hero rank goblins in a short amount of time. But just then, a figure suddenly landed behind me. Then, under my puzzled gaze, this wyvern kept rubbing its head against my body. I immediately understood. Not only do female dragons get close to the opposite sex during their special time, but they also enter a humanoid state, just like the amethyst gold dragon mother. In less than a moment, this wyvern had already shed its draconic appearance, replaced by a fervent, humanoid female dragon. Seeing how she looked like she wanted to eat me alive, a bad premonition instantly welled up in my heart. The next second, I was forcefully pinned to the ground by her. I don't know how much time passed, but I found myself leaning against a tree trunk, complaining, "Damn it, just a single wyvern is this powerful. If the amethyst gold dragon mother herself were to make a move, I probably wouldn't survive past tomorrow." But the good news was, after mating with her, I had actually evolved directly into a hero rank. Although I could also evolve by drinking her blood, this little female dragon definitely just used me as a tool. But suddenly, the little female dragon's mischievous laugh came from behind me again. Startled, I quickly pointed to a spot not far away and shouted, "Not right now. You have to feed them some of your blood first. Otherwise, I refuse to be your tool." The goblins who saw this scene were all bewildered, calling out, "Boss! What on earth is going on?" Soon, night fell. Cheers from the goblins echoed throughout the entire tribe. They were all shouting that after drinking the dragon's blood, they were all going to evolve into big guys. Seeing this, I couldn't help but sigh with emotion on the side. So this is the legendary dragon power, huh? It wasn't just me. Even the other goblins could evolve into hero rank. But thinking about how low my current overall strength was, I opened the system shop with a wave of my hand. After all, as the leader of a hero rank goblin tribe, I couldn't maintain my authority without some reliable strength. As for my 180 points, they should be enough to pick out a few high-level and practical pieces of equipment. In just a short while, I had selected a weapon called the elemental crossbow and a skill called bare-handed blade catch, which could block 3 attacks empty-handed. The former could absorb elemental power for long-range attacks, while the latter was a genuine rule-based ability. The skill was specifically for the Sword Maiden, and it could also be used to save my life in a critical moment. Meanwhile, in the Enchanted Forest, a girl in the party mentioned that the monsters here were too weak. Rather than wasting time out here, it would have been better to follow the Saintess to defend the town and slay dragons. The party leader also responded, "Recently, the Dragon Mother has been frequently disturbing Bright Town.